Greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Just here having an open panel for hopefully a discussion. Otherwise, it's just going to be me sitting up here talking about my points of view, and that ain't going to happen too long. I'm not going to sit here and just spew out my points of view. So I'm open for discussion as we talk about these things that have to do with the Abrahamic religions and beyond, in realizing what the scriptures are, where they come from, how they came about, things like that. And so the link is down there for anybody that wants to join the panel. And in the meantime, go ahead and hit that like, share, and subscribe button for me. And of course, there's PayPal links in the details for anybody who wants to share some love. Greetings, Mud.
What's up, Kaiser?
Hey, hey.
At least you get the joke.
What have you been doing today? You building fences or what?
I was building a retaining wall today. We got approval. The client got approval from the city to do a geogrid so that we can keep the watershed to a minimum. And so I was prepping the wall for that so we can install that. Been a busy day.
Good deal. Good sweat equity labor then.
Absolutely.
So
right now I'm dealing with that bullshit. Well, fish shit, but bullshit nonetheless.
Yeah. So tell me what do you know about Abram and Sarai and the new promise and the renaming and all of that?
What do I don't know much, but I do have an understanding of these things. Whether it's true or not, I wasn't there, so it's speculation at best. You know, that's about the best that I can do is give you speculation. First-hand account, we can't find it. I don't think we have that. As far as names have a lot of importance, and if you go back in time, different places become different places, to my understanding. And based off of the maps that I personally looked at, you know, shit is not always as it seems. To me, I am of the understanding. I'm of the understanding that the Bible itself is a collection of books that were all written by men telling the story of a particular family group at first, and then telling the story of a Roman cult afterwards, because that family group lost touch, and you can find what I'm saying in the Maccabees. Basically, you have a couple of characters that are pretty well known if you know what you're looking for. One of them being Josephus, and also the family that adopted him, which would be the Flavians. Go ahead.
Well, what do you think about the Egyptians?
See, this is another group of people from that same set of bloodlines, and personally, I don't think Egypt is over there. I think Egypt is right here in the Americas. Go ahead.
Well, what would you say if I thought maybe Egypt is actually seed of the house of Israel?
I would agree. I would agree that Egypt is definitely part of the seed of Israel.
And do you know why that is? Familiar with Abram and Sarai?
Because they were united in one bond. They followed the statutes and commandments of Yahweh.
Well, but what was Abram's legacy? What was who gave birth to his child, his children?
That would be an Egyptian woman by descent, if I remember correctly.
Correct, an Egyptian slave known called Hagar.
Yep.
And
because it's all
when he married Sarai, he gave this Egyptian Hagar, this Egyptian mate or slave, as it were, named Hagar, to his wife Sarai as the maidservant. Finding upon that she was barren and couldn't bear children, Sarai then turned around and I'm gonna turn your mic off while I'm speaking. It's terrible. And so Sarai turned around and gave Hagar back to Abram as a gift so that he could bear children. And then because of that, Hagar despised Sarai, thinking that now because she was going to bear Abram's child, she was better than her. And this is well known in history, yet nobody ever speaks about it. This is the importance of the mother being the next of kin. That's where you get your inheritance. And so I want to talk about heir versus hierarchy and why they are spelled differently. H-I-E-R-A-R-C-H-Y and heir as in H-E-I-R. Go ahead, Nubs.
There's some other spellings for that same word and some other pronunciations. Yeah, I'll definitely attest to that one. I am very familiar with that word. I will put it that way, to say the least.
Well, see, the one is the hierarchy. And when we think of the hierarchy, we think of the head of the household, and that's the male parent. And when we think of heir, the heir is actually the next of kin, and that would be either the firstborn son or the daughter, whichever. If somebody were not to bear a child, a son, so therefore the inheritance would go to the daughter, and she would be able to take that as a dowry to the man that would marry her. So when it comes down to the Abrahamic religion, it's actually an inheritance of the mitochondrial DNA of a Egyptian woman. What do you think about that? What chord does that strike? See, the mitochondrial DNA is the one that's passed on to everybody.
Interesting fact about that, the mitochondrial line, or the matriarch line, is prominently celebrated in particular places in Canada, which could definitely be very easily misconstrued from Canaan, over there in that area. And see, that's why I don't have a problem with the name changes or any of this, because you and I both understand that I've done more research than the average bear. Not saying the same research that you've done by any means, you've far exceeded me. Nevertheless, I have done a fair amount in the right places, and firsthand accounts are normally the books that I listen to. And it really changed my perspective, because you have the Sumerians, America. That's not a hard stretch. And then you have all of the dogs, like the Egyptian dog god, Set. not Set, but anyways, Anubis. Anubis is a black dog that you can easily find in Mexico, but very difficultly found. Oh wait, it's not found in Egypt. And so I think that the whole concept of us re-understanding or researching this information is because it needs to come to light. And the more we build upon it, and the more we understand that the story was not only turned backwards, but turned upside down and inside out as well, then you understand a little bit more, and you understand that, a book like the New Testament, for instance, is just a collection of doctrine put forth by man, supposedly ordained by God. Yeah,
and that's another. And that's another aspect of it, the scriptures that the Christians use have 66 books, and then you got Judaism that uses the first 5 books of the scriptures. So, and that's called the Torah. And then you got the Quran, which is a rewriting of the theology of Allah, as they call him. And that's just in there. It means the same thing, the spirit. And
it was the same people.
Right. And so when we look at the Bibles that we work off today, when we consider the Quran, the Christian scriptures, and the Torah as it relates to the Abrahamic religions, why is everybody dismissing the mother side, which is the whole purpose of a union, is the two countries come together and therefore become one, and so there's a mix of those cultures. So why is nobody recognizing the Egyptian sources of these Abrahamic religions due to Hagar being the Egyptian slave that is the true inheritance of the children known as the tribes of Israel?
Well, not only that, but if you look at God,
it was Isaac that gave birth to Esau and Jacob, and that was the son of Abraham. After he took on the new covenant, was renamed. Same with Sarai, renamed Sarah. Then we have Jacob that was renamed Israel. So what if the renaming is the Egyptian culture? And so the people are confused today in all this babbling because they keep changing the names.
Listen to that name, Israel. Okay? Think about the etymology. Isis, Ra'el. Isis, Ra, and El.
And see, again, and it goes to the 12 tribes of Israel as well, because supposedly Jacob named his children specifically, and when you put them in order, they spell out a birthright. And I've done a video on that too. Maybe we can review that sometime. But the 12 sons are the names of the 12 tribes of Israel, and they actually spell out the birthright. And then you have his daughter, which makes number 13, of course. Pay attention here, 13. And the daughter's name was Dinah, and that's where we get our modern terminology of dollar, which is also part of dowry, because she was the female that carried that portion of those cultures forward again. So when it comes to linking up people like Jesus and Mary and looking for the heritage, here we also be looking for the heritage of Dinah. I mean, she's the one that carried on those mitochondrial DNA, not the 12 tribes, right?
And when we start looking in the right places, that's when it starts getting interesting. And that's why I keep on looping back, because if you think about it, if Egypt was here, it makes a lot of sense for the simple fact that Cahokia is as described. I mean, like, by the Egyptians, it is as described. Um, there's plenty of evidence that would put all of those old world stories, the ancient world, right here in the Americas, including like the Hindu accounts of how Hindustan was created by Prince Maya. Yeah, like, not too fucking hard to figure out. And so that means it's here. So if we start looking here, then those stories become more evident. Like Mexico being Moshika, Moses. Like, not
Right,
too
and
hard to figure out.
well, yeah, when we start thinking about the cross-culture stories that are similar, again, it seems like they're saying the same story but renaming the characters and stuff. So
That's
here's
exactly.
that replay of renaming.
Well, a lot of that comes from Scalagarianism as well.
Now, what's that for the people that don't know?
Scalagarian, or what, however the fuck you say his name, was basically the guy in the Catholic Church that put together the chronological time of all these places, and like he was part of some secret organizations, like it's all a big fucking ploy. And another nail in the coffin is the word Hebrew literally means either those from over there or those people of the feather. Well, who wears feathers? Who wears the feathered headdress?
Well, and when we look at the Egyptian mythology and stuff, I think we need to think about this Pangea thing. Pangea, where it split apart and there was a river. And I think I read something somewhere where it said it meant the Great River, which is the same concept that you have you pointed out as being the people from here and the people from there. And the division line was that river. And now that river is the Atlantic Ocean. That part of this is all one big.
The river, the word Nile is of Greek origin or possibly Greek origin. Very similar in tradition and culture as far as the stories go, which could also be people of the tribe of Dan, just like Sweden and Sudan. They were travelers. They were boat travelers. And they created, I mean, even the fucking Irish, or the land of Irie, or the land of Ur, that very easily traced right there, because if you go from Canaan to the east, well, that's Ireland.
Yeah, well, and that's like Daniel in his tutelage to the kings of Persia, and when he came upon, it was like after the third or fourth king, he came upon King Cyrus, who then turned around and freed the Israelites. Now, in this freeing of the Israelites, what they did was they created a polity. This is like the same thing they did with the civil rights movement, the feminist movement, and this and that. What they did was they placed a classification. Now, this was the rise of Judaism, and this is because Daniel was from the house of Judah, and now as a tutor to the four kings or whatever, Persia, and then Cyrus being king of Persia and Media, the person of Media. And this is where the person of Media will start putting out there through the voice of the house of Judah, the lion, the one that roars. So it was a roaring about the freedom of the Israelites, and that is expressed as Judaism.
And not only that, but like, all these stories are very plausible when you put them in the right time, in the right place, and the right description. And when you start looking those things, you'll see that the house of David, well, that's not too hard to find. Look for the description of the place and then go find a building that's described or that looks with our fucking star maps and shit like that. We have all this fucking technology, but nobody takes the fucking time to think about these things logically. Because David's house is different.
Well, there's another thing too. There's another thing too, in today's world, we think about the Father which art in heaven and the Mother in earth. And again, when it comes to these scriptures, I use them as a guide because in them it tells me, this is the way I interpret them, that God is not setting forth laws. God is giving instructions for us to follow freely. This is our free will. And we get to follow those instructions to be observant of the Mother Earth and her laws, the laws of nature, and her God, the God that created her, because as above, so below. Now, in the below, we are not of this world. We are just in this world. So we are subject to Mother Nature's laws first and foremost. We are guided by the day and the night. We're instructed to be guided by the day and the night. So why do we all sleep at night?
It's the night and it's not the day and the night. Look at the calendar; they flipped it. That's why
we're going to show you something else when it comes to the clock and the lunar schedule and the sun. The sun comes across in the daytime, and we gauge its distance and the length of our days for our harvesting and planting and reaping and all of this. And throughout the winter, throughout the seasons, we know when things are going to ripen. This is paying Sabbath to her every 7 years by following the instructions in the scripture that tell us how she works for not just you, but all of her creatures. And again, this wraps right around to why we're supposed to be ministers of the gospel to all creatures.
Well, see, that's where my understanding, that's a harvest moon, not a harvest sun.
Right, and that's what brings in the night sky, and it's lunatic because that's what bases the calendar, while the day bases the 24-hour clock. So you have the lunatic for the waxing and waning of the moon, and you've got the clock for the daytime tick-tock. So you got a 12-hour clock. What's 12 and 1? 13.
3 and 1.
What's 11 and 2? 13. What's 10 and 3? 13. What's 9 and 4? 13. What's 8 and 5? 13. What's 6 and 7? 13. How many children again? See, you're supposed to give your blessing all the time, paying attention to your birthright because you were born in this world, but you're not of this world. That's your ultimate priority, is paying attention to your birthright and demanding that. Demanding to live by Mother Nature's laws, who says that since the time of the Garden of Eden, it was instructed that because man sinned, we now have a duty in this earth, and that is to go forth and till the soils for our reaping, so that we may daily eat our bread. That is a duty, and it tells us to go forth and prosper in abundance, multiply and replenish the earth. We're supposed to do that individually, not have some fucking corporate farm do it. I don't know nothing in the Bible about no corporate farm.
They were large farms, but they weren't corporate. They were individually owned and operated.
Well, and that's another part of this system that I've watched over the decades. I grew up on family farms in the foster homes and stuff. I went to a lot of them, and it's an amazing thing. Say what?
Extra labor.
Yeah, and
so farms work, man. You can move shit.
Well, I grew up on those farms, learning a lot about nature and stuff. And one of the saddest things was watching the '70s when all the farmers went under in the mortgage frauds and stuff, you know. Um, and in came the corporate industrial farmers, and it's done nothing but grow since. And now here we are today. We've got, you know, like they've been discussing lately, the apples with the coatings on them and stuff, and you know, you really need to peel all your fruits and stuff like that, get all that kind of shit off because it's just so processed and poisoned.
I don't know if I've ever told you, but I had my private applicator's license for pesticides in the state that I was living on at the age of 16. I was the youngest individual in the state to have ever achieved that test. Most adults, they spray under somebody else's license. I had my fucking license. Believe me, if there's certain chemicals that you don't want that shit anywhere near your food, and much less yourself. Like, there's some bad shit out there, and it's used all the time in the food industry, and they dilute it with this and that, and it reduces the bullshit. Bullshit. You aren't breaking those fucking chemicals down.
Yeah, and there's another important thing. We have to, again, if we pay attention to Mother Nature, she gives us natural remedies to keep things within her bounds. And I mentioned this the other day on some panel. I think you were around. That we're supposed to maintain the waterways. The Spirit of God moves upon the waters. And what's at the edge of those waters? Levees. What are we supposed to maintain? The life. And as we do so, it's because we're sojourning in following the natural source of life to maintain our own. We follow the waterways, spreading the seeds and things like that, tending the soils along the banks, known as levees. We are the leverage in this system of balance. We are the leverage. Let me say that one more time. We are the system. In this system of balance, we are the leverage. We are the leverage between the land and the water. That's our maintenance area. We're supposed to enhance all these watersheds. We're destroying them, putting all these huge scabs. Looks beautiful, brother.
The ironic part is that's what I'm taking care of, is the levee, where my water and my soil or my aggregate meet. I'm cleaning out all of that. And that right there is the reason, or a big part of the reason, why I do this whole thing and the whole purpose. Why I started with that.
That for your own consumption?
Research, my friend.
Because you know, folks, a lot of that water-type green life is excellent for you. I mean, they have a lot of people out there in these nutritional centers pushing forth all this seaweed. If you looked into that, you'd find out, particularly if you've got good clean water, this is going to be a good clean source of nutrients if you're the one putting in the specific nutrients. And this is something that you can do also, brother, is experiment with the different nutrients you can provide for them, and be able to provide for healthier nutritional supplement that way. You know, if you're low on a particular vitamin, you can provide it nutrients that are high in that vitamin. And guys, the panel link is pinned for anybody that wants to join and discuss. It's actually an open topic, but I'm kind of hoping we can keep it on the Abram and Sarai issue with Egypt and Judaism, the Torah, Quran, the Christian scriptures and stuff, so we can kind of help people figure out this whole thing about this entitlement and these titles and paternity and being born in a spell of illness. because, and I'm not fully aware yet of the full claim in both the Torah and the Quran. I still got more research to do, but it is specifically noted in the King James scriptures at Isaiah 43, verse 1, about fear not, for I have redeemed thee. I called thee by thy name, thou art mine. And then reaffirms at 44:5, one shall say, I am the Lord's. One shall call himself by the name Jacob, and another shall subscribe with his hand unto the Lord, and surname himself by the name Israel. So this is knowing that by taking on a new name, it's a recognition of the separation between the man and the spirit. This is the importance of the story of Jacob's ladder, is realizing that the God within you that you're fighting is your own God. It's you. You're your own problem. Get over your own problems and become the solution. Your cup will welleth over, and you will be able to provide the solution for others. This is the story of, you can give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, but if you teach him to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. But the true principle behind it is that now he can teach two. Each one teach one. No, each one teach two. Speaking boldly as we ought to. How do you figure them plants exponentially grow? Do they grow one by one, or do they divide into two, and then those two each divide into two more, making four? It's the same way. Life is already prosperous. We're just supposed to flow with it. That's in water banks, in riverways, watersheds, lakes, ponds, streams, springs. That's the true source of life, guys. Despite any Egyptian or Israeli roots of mankind. Again, reflecting that we're supposed to minister the word to all creatures. You got any stereos going with your plants? As we minister to all creatures, they've got studies that music has an effect.
That's part of the research. I need to get I'm really working on this pump system. It's tinkering around, it's fucking around, it's doing different things, because basically so far what we're doing is we're bringing water from high, mixing it with air, and just trapping it on the other side of a check valve and into some swirls, and basically I've had moments of clarity where I've seen it, and I'm looking to figure out how to make the parts in order for it to make sense and work. This one, the other system, the big pond, I'm almost fucking there with it. Totally, like, I'm figuring out multiple systems at once, because the principles I gain from one, I'm applying to the next one as I'm building the one, and they're almost like a single system, because I need different parts to produce air pressure so that I can alleviate it and push water with that air. So it's
Now, what do you think about doing an experiment with, say, like electrolysis and different metal anodes and canodes to maybe filter water, or specifically feed specific types of nutrients to the plants? Have one at one end and one at another end, and have your water circulating. It would electrolyze that water and maybe help them plants feed even better. My mind doesn't stop, brother. You're muted.
I'm right there with you. I've thought about putting an HHO system in here. However, this is in my basement, and I don't need to make a hydrogen oxygen bomb. Uh, because there are studies that when you implement
That would just be a byproduct. So you would just valve it off. That don't they do that with utility companies? If you have your own generator, you're producing extra energy, you can sell it back to a local utility company. Why not do the same thing? As long as you could do it you could fucking undercut everybody else in the market. You can put off a lot of hydrogen with that kind of setup. Yeah.
that's a bunch of magnets going back and forth, disrupting the magnetic field of the water. Like I've had to literally build each one of these fucking parts damn near. And then you got to test it and figure out if it works, and if it works there, will it work here? The spiral pipe is definitely, from the research that I've done, the spiral pipe increases your pressure because it has to go up and down, and it's kind of like a pumping motion where the air has to move. It's got to move in one direction, and that's up.
Well, and not only that, but it's if you look into Victor Schauerberger, he talked about the toroidal currents and everything, and it creates a positive energy in the water, which is another thing that would feed the plants. The plants would naturally feed on the excess energy, or that piezoelectric charge that's generated in the water that they're feeding on. If you had it set up in a hydroponic or a, what do they call it, aquaculture tubing system, have that current going through in a spiral tube with hydroponic plant setup, washing them roots with that positive water and all their nutrients. Same thing as a normal regular river does.
Do you see this? Do you see that part right there? That is 100% inspired by Victor. 100, because what that is that is my vortex generator, which collects both water and air. And then I compress the air later and alleviate it. I'm not breaking any laws of physics. Not at all. I'm alleviating high pressure to escape to low pressure and then circulating it back. And it's not all the same. Basically, what I'm getting is I'm getting a release at the top. So my final release for the system is in the low pressure zone. But that goes up to a even lower pressure zone because you got to push up, and the air goes one way, the water that it's trapped goes the opposite way, fills up a reservoir, and then it's fed by weight and fluidity, equaling out the pressures from one barrel to another, and it goes right into a vortex to recapture all that water and clean it out.
Awesome shit, brother. Awesome shit. All right. Well, what else? We were talking about Jacob's ladder. Let's see here. See if I got it here. Yes, I do. Let's take a look at this. Because remember, I told you the birthright of Jacob's 12 sons. Make sure I can see that. Yes, it's up there.
Wizard, I'm pretty sure you've seen my real name, correct?
Your what?
My real name?
Not that I know of.
I'll type it down in chat if you if you would please, or actually, I'll just wait till after the show and I'll tell you afterwards. You're gonna shit. It's pretty funny. I'm not gonna lie. It's truly ironic.
We'll do. We'll do. All right. So what we have is 12 sons of Jacob. His first son's name was Reuben, which means behold, a son. Behold, meaning you have to see it, eyes to see. Simeon, God hears, ears to hear. This is the original herald, which means to grow. Ald means to grow, and it's her to grow. See, we're supposed to grow in her. Levi equals join. Judah, let him be praised. This is why I was saying that the Judaism is based on the voice of the house of Judah, the Lion of Judah. He's the one that roars, and he's roaring, praising God. The original herald to God, growing in spirit. Dan was the judge. We spoke about the house of Dan, tribe of Dan earlier. Naphtali, my wrestling. So he's asking him to judge your wrestling. He's our judge, not another man. And we hope he judges us righteously. Our tribe of Gad is good fortune, rewarding us for doing good as he has judged us, making us happy. House or tribe of Asher, tribe of Issachar, man for hire. He studied. He's showing himself worthy. Zebulon, dwelling, meaning the house of God. Joseph, may God add. Man for hire, so add me to your house as a steward in your house. Benjamin, son of the right hand, righteously going forth as the legacy heir. Legacy meaning the story, which is what we get from the father's side. We get, like I said earlier, dowry from the female side. That was his daughter's name, Dinah. And Esau, he was the first direct link to God. And he was the first son, and that was the birthright. But Esau was willing to sell his birthright for a bowl of lentil soup. He didn't know the value of his birthright in that if God takes care of even the littlest creatures, what makes you think he's not going to take care of you? That is your birthright. In my opinion. And that's why we're discussing this thing about Abram and Sarai and the Egyptian roots through the mother's side of Hagar. Hagar being the one that gave birth to Isaac, father of Jacob. So who was Isaac's wife? No, you know that? And I must have left it.
Isaac's wife. I do know this. All this stuff was pounded into my head as a kid. Again, I can't think of her name, but she was not Hebrew. She was of another house. She was of a neighboring tribe. You're muted. Now it's showing you're muted, but I couldn't hear you earlier.
Okay, are we back?
I
Okay.
can hear you now.
So, Isaac's wife was Rebecca, meaning to bond or to tie. So again, Rebecca, meaning to bond or to tie, is telling us our true earthly bond is with the mother. That's why the baby bonds with the mother and suckles on the mother's breast first. She's the one that provides that kind of bonding. We're supposed to learn how to bond with our mother in this world. Everything I've read tells us that we're following a patronymical father, a patriot, a patriarch, and there's but one Father which art in heaven, and that we've been misled in all senses. I mean, these nations, as I said, as patriarchs through all these religions, I'd be darned if everything doesn't say start learning how to follow Mother Nature's laws. That all these supposed the God of all these supposed religions, however, multiple gods or whatever, they all seem to be giving instruction to do what we need to in Earth. That there are limits and bounds to not just Earth, but our own bodies, and that we are subject to the Earth's powers in that.
Where did the ibis get its wisdom? Tahuti is the ibis.
The who?
So, Tahuti, or Thoth.
Right. Thoth.
Yes.
And so that brings me to the night sky. You know, when we think about the sun and the day, that's for the people that are generally on the land, and the night sky is for those that are travelers at night, whether it be on land or water. There are people that have had to make sojourns because they were behind in the season because the season snuck up on them early or something. They're not always precise. And so something happened, so they had to move, and they had to do it quick, and they had to do some night traveling, so they had to follow the stars. So not only are we supposed to be people of the land by day, but the land and water by night. Because even from land to land, those that go across these great bodies of water, their navigation as it relates to nativity, as it relates to navy, all coincide with a sky chart that shows them how to get from one landmass to another by a land chart. So again, we talk about the legacy of our father and the inheritance of our mother, the legacy heir. There is a hierarchy. One comes first and then the other. You have to have the instruction to be able to observe the laws of nature.
Just listen to the word. Leg, I see. Legs, I see. I mean,
Yeah, do you have your sea legs? Ah, he's got a leg, I see. So it really becomes inherent to think about these things and wonder what all the scriptures really mean and why they're interpreted the way they are, and be open-minded to do your research of them and beyond them. You know, including the Tao and the Tao, you know, Hinduism and Buddhism and all that. A lot of different religions and spiritual organizations, all having similar concepts and precepts of thought. So just want to bring this stuff out and see what other people think. If maybe there's a different way to find the truth of what we're really supposed to be doing. Because listening to all these fucked up guys is pretty stupid.
there
I'm
is
not
absolutely
start listening to women. I'm not saying to start listening to women, but as it goes to the Sabbath, I think we need to start paying more attention to our true Mother Earth. Go ahead, Nuts.
The thing that we got to realize is we've been lied to for just long enough that we still remember the truth deep down inside. If mama ain't happy, is daddy gonna be happy? I mean, let's be honest. No, because it's something that we have fucked up, that we are not taking accountability for, that they are reminding us of the commitment that we had made between that union, whether it's 1, 2, 10, fucking 20, 30, it didn't matter. You know, and I used to work at the post office and I worked with this Muslim gentleman. And I said, oh, yeah, you guys have multiple wives. That's awesome. He's like, don't ever have more than one wife. I said, why? He said, they will kill you. I said, well, for one, you're not dead. And for two, obviously you're taking care of it good enough to have two. So, you know,
Well, and that's just like Hagar and Sarai. Once Sarai gave Hagar unto her husband Abram as a gift to bear children, to fulfill that duty. That was specifically what she gave him unto him for. But then once she fulfilled that duty, he was still her maidservant. But this put her in a position to despise Sarai, because as her maidservant and yet being the bearer of the child for Abram, she felt she should have been better. So, read the scripture and find out what happened there. Hagar actually took off, and they actually brought her back, and Abram, being a man of honor, taught him how to live together and love each other, knowing that they each had separate duties, and that was a form of respect for him, because he couldn't bear children any other way, so it was a respect for her as well. Therefore, it was a respect for the union, and that's truly what the intent of life is about. So now we have Sarai, who was of one place, Abram, who was of another, and a child who was of another. That's three different cultures coming together as one to create a fourth. Is that semblance of a fourth dimension? I don't know.
In my understanding, that's why it says, that women should honor their husbands as their husbands honor the Most High. And if you listen to what is really being said, like, if the husband isn't doing his due diligence, the wife is there to indicate that. If you really think about it, because she's going to honor you as you are honoring him or it.
Well, right, and not only that, but think about it in nature, and we see this in like lion tribes or prides. I'm sorry. The females, when they have cubs, the other sisters of the tribe will help take care of them. It's a unity thing. And so if you have, a maidservant that can help raise your children, why not part of it be help bearing the children? And even if you had multiple wives, that means even more people being able to take care for that child. What better reason not to have to send that child to school of a public education system? I think people really need to start thinking about this kind of stuff and realize that that's how you prevent barren women and desolate children, by making adoption situations for them prior to it, because you have knowledge of certain things. So if you married a woman that's barren, but you do it out of love, and you know that there's a polygyny type situation where you can bring in another woman, just like the scriptures say about if a woman is married and her husband dies, one of his brothers is supposed to help bring forth a seed. What is that? That's something else. Polygamy. I can't remember what it is. Let me see here. Polyandry, polygyny, and polyandry. One being a woman with multiple husbands, and one being a man being with multiple wives. And they can work both ways. Again, we see that kind of stuff in nature in various different ways. Just like we see asexual creatures, night crawlers, things like that. There are a few of them. It's a matter of knowing that both things can happen. What is done is what ought be done. There is nothing new under the sun. And we're actually supposed to be here following something, meaning we're supposed to mimic it, and along the way, hopefully try to improve it. And I think the more people find out that there's a greater diversity in all of these bloodlines and stuff like that, the more they'll realize that we're actually a lot closer to each other than we really thought. And I think that's important to realize. Again, bringing up the point that, everybody thinks the Abrahamic religions as Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. I think they have a more extensive root, in which brings the fourth leg to the table of what came before Abraham and what came after, and that what came after proves that there's, or is said, I guess I can't say proof, but the history says Hagar was an Egyptian maidservant for Sarai as a gift from Abram. So, kind of a big thing to look at and base on this stuff, and realize what are we really looking at when we look up our legacy, and we look up who our daddy was and who their daddy was, and find out the genealogy. We inherently have to relate it to the mother, and that's the mitochondrial DNA. So what's more important when we're what?
It was known, to my understanding, it was known as the Mappa. It's the matriarchal energy.
Right.
Like I because of what I've read and understand and listened to, and I'm looking at a lot of these things. Like, my understanding of the whole Columbus situation is based off of his own fucking writings. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the matriarchal thing you were talking about. Is we get our comfort from our mom, we get our convenience from our dad, because it's convenient for dad to make things comfortable for mom, so that she doesn't always be yapping at everybody. She needs this and she needs that. So if he makes things comfortable by making them convenient, this is how we got where we're at today. We have electronic refrigerators and freezers. We knew how to take care of our food and keep it stored naturally a long time ago, but it became convenient for our wives by our own placating to make their lives comfortable, so they didn't have to do all that canning and everything. And now you can just go to a store, and that's the price to pay for that convenience and comfort, ladies. Sorry, keep begging for it. You demanded it.
I think it's really interesting if you do any research on the vagabonds. Henry Ford and fucking Thomas Edison. They drove around the country, basically little peddlers, peddling their wares and tears, and that's how the automobile became popular in the Americas, because they were it was advertisement. It was
right. Advertisement. The mentality of temptation in verse by adding unto or taking away from.
And not only that, but if you look at the origins of the women's liberation movement, it was started from a man in France that was looking for a political edge.
I was thinking about that today. We're getting closer and closer to times, folks. Believe you me. 2/3 of the graduating class of a female college will be female. You watch it. Someday you're going to read a headline just like that. 2/3 of such and such female college are actually females. Telling us that 1/3 is fucking male. This is where we're headed, folks. This is the insanity.
This is where we're at, folks. There's more that says that's where we're at in the world that has never affected me personally. I mean, not directly, I guess very indirectly, along the side of my pocketbook and my rights and freedoms and me. But a lot of that boils down to me not being aware of what my rights and freedoms were. Because if you don't use them, you lose them. And if you don't get taught how to use them, you never do until you need to. And it's all fun and games, so you get punched in the fucking face.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that, I go over some of those shorts. You guys have seen I do some shorts here and there. I haven't done it in a while. But I review some of the insane shorts that are out there about Karens and Darrens and transgenders and all these clowns. And it's just ridiculous. And that's where we're at. Again, we're creating more and more classifications, which creates more jurisdictions for them to classify us in, and we fight for it. We demand it, just like women demanded the convenience and comfort of a washer and dryer or this or that. Somebody creates it, they put it out in public and advertise it. Somebody sees it, and because it looks so convenient and comfortable, oh yeah, now it's a benefit. Dad had to work a lot for that money. He probably would have liked it to go for something much more important.
Same thing with seatbelts and drinking and driving. You know who the biggest advocates for both of those were? Insurance companies.
Absolutely.
And they just didn't want to pay out. That's all it was, is they didn't want to pay out.
Well, do you suppose all of them liquor companies have their own surety bond, or do you think they're insured? See, it's not just a banking scheme, it's an insurance scheme. See, as a buyer, folks, what you're doing is you're buying the insurance, the obligation, the liability. If you don't understand this, I urge you to do your research. Don't believe me. Don't believe the neighbor. Don't believe the government. For crying out loud, don't believe your mother. Do your research. I'm telling you. If you don't understand banking, why would you hand your financial situation over to somebody else that does, that will and has known many times over, repeatedly, and it still happens today. It is patently observable. They hand you Federal Reserve notes, despite the fact that Federal Reserve notes are for advances from one Federal Reserve institution to another by Federal Reserve agents and for no other purpose are allowed. You ask them why they are violating that federal code, and they will be stumped. We always do. That doesn't mean you're not doing it. In fact, you just admitted that you did. And then the dumb lady says, "Well, what are you going to do about it?" Well, the only thing I can the only thing I can rightly do is stop using them. So I'm forced to use other things. Get this, people. I'm forced to use other things known as a credit card, which is, and it's very ambiguous. Pay attention. I'm going to show you something. A credit card is something used, is a card, plate, or anything used to obtain, or any device used to obtain money, property, labor, or services. Now I'm going to look that up here in a minute and make sure that I quoted that accurately. But it goes on to say, on credit. Now pay attention. This here is a telephone. Many people call it in the tech industry a device. What kind of device are you on? Are you on the desktop, laptop? Are you on the iPhone? Are you on a Android? Are you on this or that? Okay? It's a device. With this, with electronic information, you can use this to obtain money, property, labor, or services. Yeah, Pizza Hut? Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, yeah, I'd like that family special tonight. Yeah? Well, here's the number. That came through? Great, thanks. That's a credit device. You just obtained it on credit. It's on credit. That's the last thing it says. 15 USC 1602. Credit card. Let's look it up. And then we're going to get back to the House of Judah since we're supposed to be singing. And there we go. Credit card. Credit card means any card, plate, coupon, book, or other credit device. So I missed coupon, book, and then or other. So the term credit card means any card, like a Social Security card, plate, like a license plate. You know, what do they call them when they make money? Is that a plate? So did they obtain that money on credit? Coupon, book, or other credit device existing for the purpose of obtaining money, property, labor, or services on credit. Interesting, huh?
You know, that's really interesting for a guy like myself who has had a bank account that my biggest joke to the banker, and I would always use it as a joke, but it wasn't a very funny joke type deal. She didn't find it funny, is I was always letting her know that I was thinking about depositing $1 million note into my account.
Well, yeah, that's a credit device. You know, did you know this is a credit device, right? Right? That's a credit device, guys.
And it changes when you use it changes a lot when you use different inks too. And back to your name or your tribe of Judah, and Judah follows the lion, right? Have you ever looked at the crest of England?
Hey, what do you use this for? Use this to what? Express your voice? Is this your invoice? Really have to learn how to mold this language, folks. Yeah. Non-applicable. You know what else is funny is a countable noun. What is a countable noun? It's something that can be counted. Enumeration at birth that creates the legal name is a countable noun. Accountable. It's a countable noun. So the noun Keith Little is accountable. Not me. The noun.
Also accounted.
Yes, as accounted. It's
That's why
already
we
been
have
enumerated. It's already been enumerated. Remember, folks, under 20 CFR 422.103, employee benefits, it says the individual's name, which is accounted for, and that accounting is accounted as the number. It's the individual's name and number identify the record. It's not identifying yourself. Never will, never can. You are not the noun. You are the verb. What's the verb do? It does the things like sing. That's the invoice. So anyway, back to House of Judah. The Lion of Judah. He's the one that roars and sings.
and you look at that whole European monarchy and this and that, the bolarchy, if you really look at it, because that was the Merovingian lines, and then other lines came in, and families changed. There was I can find my lineage. My brother has traced my lineage back to the ancient kings and queens of Norway and Denmark.
Right. Right. See, that's where we start getting into that's when we start getting into the Nordic history and theology and stuff, and Odin and all of that. And those are interesting stories too, because there are a lot of them that are similar as well.
Odin. Think about that.
Yep.
Odin. Where were they? They were in Sweden or Daneland. The tribes of the Danes, the Dans.
Yep.
It's not very difficult to figure it out, and they weren't sailing in little boats. These were massive fucking vessels that were crossing.
And I remind you here, Daniel is the one that was tutor to the kings before Cyrus, king of Persia, Media, that we spoke about earlier. So again, we talk about the legacy. That's where we get the story. But inherently, where we get our inheritance is in her. That's why it's inheritance. In her, it ants. It's the character of being in her. So we really have to think about this stuff and the way the language is constructed when it's really telling us. The legacy is your path in life and the story that's told about that others see, and that's the story. So it's the spiritual insemination of the material seed that then comes forth. The father gives the spiritual seed. That's the insemination. Mother therefore is entrusted with as the womb to bring forth the child, discharging the man, and then when he takes his first breath, he's the living soul. Now that he's a living soul, he has characters of everything, the land, air, and water. That's what makes him an organism, a living organism.
The four corners.
Yep. Well, real quick here, I want to remind everybody, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And Brother Nubs, I think we're done. I think we had a good discussion for tonight, and I hope people watch this video and want to come back and talk more about this stuff. Because, like I said before, folks, I'm not a Christian, I'm not a Jew, I'm not Islam. I recognize a lot of truths, and it seems like some of them, the farther back we go, bring into a greater enlightenment, the ability to really reasonably and logically sit back and discern it for yourselves and start asking some serious questions about what is already written down. You know, if Abram and Sarai had children, but it was through Hagar, and Hagar was an Egyptian maidservant, then the lineage of the tribes of Israel truly have some kind of aspect of the matriarchal origins of Egypt. And that's where we were talking earlier about Nubs and I, Isis, Ra'el, Israel. It's clearly indicative of the name, and is reminding us that I think of the time where they recognized, instead of multiple gods, that we each have a God within us that can discern the two patterns that we have that are intertwining in our natural realm, and that's the Maximus, or Alpha, and the Beta, or Omega, I guess you could call it even. That's the male and female, masculine and feminine. There's a central point of balance, and I think, like I was talking about earlier, when the scripture tells us the Spirit of God moves upon the face of the waters, and He is married to the earth, that's His wife. That levee, those banks along the waterways, is where I believe we're instructed to follow and stay close and pay loyalty and tribute to our mother and our father in earth as we go along, tendering the soils as our duty from being kicked out of the Garden of Eden. Now we are just as strangers and sojourners supposed to migrate. We are a itinerant people, going forth and learning and teaching those that come after us what our experiences are, and how we grow from the experiences that came before us. So I think it's important when we do our research that we don't get so close-minded and start calling ourselves Christians and Muslims and Jews. I think we all realize that our roots come from a certain point of origin and is all familiar and similar to all of us. And I think we all need to start looking back farther and coming together in discussions like this to ask those kind of questions. So I really seriously hope everybody thinks about the Egyptian roots of the 12 tribes of Israel. And with that, you got anything else, Nubs? If you should.
Do your research. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to Wizard. He's a crazy old man. Listen to your internal God. For doesn't it say in Scripture, we are all but gods?
Need to see thyself worthy and approved. Absolutely, brother. Hey, I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Again, I appreciate all your support. Hit the like, share, and subscribe button. There's PayPal links in the details section below. Nubs, great to see you up again. And folks, I'm always willing to have open panels, and there's no reason to not join us. It makes for greater discussion. And again, thanks. I love you, but you know I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. So may God bless you, and have a good night. Bye now.